Hi, honey. Okay, everyone, I think we can go ahead and get started. I'm just going to remind everyone to go ahead and mute yourself if you're not speaking or asking a question. We're super excited to have everybody joining us here for the fourth installment of Leadership Institute. We've got Tish Thompson today, who's going to be presenting to you guys on time management and goal planning. So I know she's got a lot of great content. Before we get started, though, we do have two more people joining Tish today that have not been part of this session before. So I wanted to see if maybe we wanted to just go ahead and let them introduce themselves quickly and maybe just let us know what you're hoping to get out of it. So Lisa, do you want to start?
Hi, good morning, everyone. My name's Lisa Murtaugh-Ganji. My business is L Services, which is PR and media, helping you get your business into the news. I'm really hoping to get out of this re-motivating after an entire crash of my existing, systems and all that. And I'm excited to learn about Tish's thoughts on, how to jumpstart that sort of, I don't want to get into routine stuff, but like jumpstart that whole regimented productivity.
Awesome. That's good.
Fantastic. And then John Robbins, do you want to go ahead and introduce yourself and let us know what you're hoping to get out of today?
You can drop it in the chat.
Yeah.
Oh, there you go. There you go.
Hey, and what was the question again?
So just going ahead and introducing yourself, John, and then just letting the group know why you're joining us today, what you're hoping to take away from this.
Well, awards and fine gifts celebrating, I can't even comprehend it, 35 years of helping corporations, associations, and nonprofits recognize their employees for outstanding performance, their volunteers, their years of service employees, and their customers, whether it be a wonderful plaque, a crystal piece, a nice giveaway pen, or one of a variety of different promotional items or awards. And as far as today is, after being in business for 35 years, you always like to get a refresher course on how to fine tune what you do on a daily basis about goals and hear what other people are saying and stay in touch. So awards and fine gifts trying to help you recognize your customers and employees.
All right, fantastic. Well, again, thank you all so much for joining. Tish, I'm sure you have a jam-packed curriculum, so I will go ahead and turn the floor over to you.
Good morning, everybody. What's today? Tuesday. We start to lose track of days. Really glad to be with you guys today to talk about this exciting topic of goal planning and time management. And I'm sure that many of us understand the basic construct of planning goals, setting goals, and things of that nature. So today we're just going to kind of lay out a smorgasbord of resources that you can kind of pull that makes sense for you. And so there's some things that you're going to hear today that you've already heard and know, and there's some things hopefully that will be new for you. So really excited to share that information. So as people are still hopping on, I'm not going to drop the participant guide in yet for another couple minutes, because once I drop it in, people coming after it won't see it. So I'm just going to wait a hot second. But here's what I'm going to need you to need or grab for our time today. Scissors, sheet of paper, and a pen or a pencil. Now we will tap into these things a little bit later in our time together, but I want you to start to kind of grab those things. Scissors, a sheet of paper outside of the paper you're taking for notes. This is going to be different, and a pen, and then just set that to the side once you grab that. I'm going to, before I share my screen, I kind of want to get a sense from folks, kind of similar to what John and Lisa did, was sharing kind of what they're hoping to get out of today. Certainly there's a lot that we can talk about, but I really want to hone our conversation to meet your specific needs. And so you can drop it in the chat or you can unmute yourself and just share with me what would make today's session valuable for you. What would make you walk away saying, wow, that was time well spent? What are you hoping to achieve today? So just drop it in the chat or just shout it out, just so I can get a sense of what everyone is hoping to walk away saying this was a very valuable session for you. Anybody can go. And if you're an open book, you can tell me that too. Okay, so some time management. Okay, and prioritize the things that matter. So the time management section that we will be doing will definitely help with that. So when we talk about time management today, it's going to be a bit different than what we traditionally think about time management. So it's going to be really focused on how do we get the work done and add time back into our day versus how to have work-life balance and that kind of a thing. So it's a very practical segment that we're going to have, action-oriented section that we're going to have when we talk about time management. So thank you for that. 1, 2 tips on how to more efficient with my time. Cool. Some apps or software tools for planning on the fly, whether in or out of the office. Awesome. How to be, consistency is key. Learn more about keeping better track of time management for me, but also staff. Okay. Learn a new technique or tools. Something important to help with time. Okay, so we are here about the time management today. Priority setting. Tip or 2 on help with remote work priority setting. Okay, awesome. So we have a lot of focus that we have on the time management piece. And so we're going to go ahead and cover goal planning first. Because first you have to kind of know what direction you're going to then know what's the best way for you to spend your time and manage your time. So we're going to hop into that. I'm going to go ahead and drop in the participant guide for you guys. Let's see. Desktop. Okay, so there it is. So you can pull that down. It's a Word document, so you can go ahead and type in that. And then I'm going to go ahead and share. I want to be able to see you guys, and it seems like the only way I'm able to see you guys if I do my screen this way, but this annoys me having it like this, but I think I will make do and just move this over here. All righty, so as you know, we're here for the goal planning and time management session. No, this is good. I'm gonna just do it this way. Okay, so if you're saying something to me or yelling at me, you're gonna have to take yourself off of mute if you have a question, because I won't be able to see you. So in the whole process of the Leadership Institute, as Rick stated when we did the launch, is kind of looking at development from 3 different facets. So I just wanted to reacclimate ourselves with this and remind us where we are in the process. So it's broken down into 3 facets, and the one facet that we're currently in is still managing self. So we have to get some really good rigor around managing ourselves before we transition into relationship, which will start our next term. Our next session, and then transition into organizational. So here's how we're going to spend our time together. We're going to take a deep dive into understanding the goal setting process and understand the different types of goals and how to construct those goals in order to lead your organization to success, and then spending some time on maximizing time so that you can actually have a little bit of time for yourself left at the end of the day or end of the week or however that plans out. So with goal planning, here's a basic cycle. So when you look at the research around setting goals, they typically follow a very similar cycle. And I like to think about goal setting in the perspective of cycle, because it should be just that, a cycle. Sometimes what happens is, and I'm sure many of you can attest to this in your organization, you'll set goals at the beginning of the year. And if it's merit-based, you probably won't hear anything else about those goals until the end of the year. But if we really want to maximize organizational performance, rather it be you're working for a larger organization or you're working for yourself, looking at that goal cycle process should be a cyclical thing. So the first thing is setting the goals. What direction am I going this year? And many of us had to have those conversations with ourselves at the beginning of the year to say, man, we got slapped hard in 2020. And so what am I going to do to reset for 2021? So what direction am I going? And if we haven't had that thought, that's a thought that we really need to have. What goals do I need to accomplish in 2021 to take my business to the next level? The next thing that you want to think about is, okay, I have the goal, but what are those key actionable steps I need to take in order to propel me to accomplishment of that goal? If we don't have those key steps in place, then we just have kind of this esoteric goal that's kind of sitting out there. So we want to get very specific and say, here's the goal, here are the key actions that I'm going to take in order to accomplish this goal. Next step is, well, how am I going to measure it? Sometimes we set goals and we don't even know how we're going to measure it. And if we don't know how we're going to measure it, then we might want to rethink the goal. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. And then how do we evaluate process and progress? This should be done every quarter or however often it makes sense to say, okay, am I tracking with this goal? Does this goal still make sense based on what's happening in my industry, what's happening in the landscape? Do I need to make it more aggressive? Do I need to back off of it? And kind of having those kind of conversations with yourself and having dedicated time where you're reviewing your goals. And then the last step is making adjustments. I will say that I like to add a step to this, and it actually is before we set the goals. It's important for you to really know and understand your business in order to know what kinds of goals you need to set for your business. And so that is the first step that is important for us to look at. Here's some considerations when you're thinking about your organization. What's my mission, or what's the vision? Or if you're for a larger organization, what is our mission and what's our vision? Who are our competitors? Who am I trying to compete against? Who is tapping into my pond? What are my core competencies, or the things that I'm known to do really well, or my internal capabilities? Core competencies are the things that you are known for. So for example, Tesla, they're known for technology. That's their wheelhouse. Will you see Tesla in the restaurant business? Probably not, because that's way outside of their core competencies. And so when you think about your business, what are you really good at? And stick to that versus trying to delve into other areas. Who's your customer base? What are some areas where you're successful? And what are some areas where you've had oops moments? And in those oops moments, what are ways that you've recovered from that? And what have you learned from that? And what's your reputation? What do people think of you? All of these things are important to consider when you're getting a sense of who you are as a business and how people see you. Another way to think about this is conducting a SWOT analysis. Now, I know that word sounds really big and audacious, but you can make it as simple as you need it to be. And so here's something that I would recommend before you start that process of setting goals. Really take a deep dive into who you are as an organization. So with SWOT, it takes a look at the internal factors in terms of where you're strong and where are some of your weaknesses. And it also takes a look at what's happening around you, the external world. What are your opportunities and what are some threats that are against you? So what's helpful for you are those strengths and opportunities. The things that are harmful are the weaknesses and the threats. And so doing just a quick analysis of that is really important. So just to break it down even further, what are your strengths? Is what's the stuff, what's your it factor? Like, what's the stuff that you do really well that people seek you out for? What is that? What are some of the areas that you can improve on? Some of your weaknesses? What are some of the things that you're like, my muscle is a little bit weaker on here. I really need to develop a little bit more strength in this area in order to compete with my competitors. And your opportunities are things like, wow, this is a great opportunity for me to tap into. Here's a trend that's coming within my industry that I feel like I have the internal capability and core competencies in order to compete well in this space. So what are some of those things that are happening within your industry that you can hop in and do really well in? And what are some things that are threats to you? What's the competition doing? As we saw in 2020, we saw a lot of organizations that were very agile in terms of how they maneuvered and flexed their businesses. Do you have the ability to maneuver and flex if we were to be hit with such another pandemic or such another travesty to our nation and to our world? Do you have the ability to pivot? What are some of those threats that you can anticipate and position yourself to arm yourself against those things? I like this last statement. What threats do your weaknesses expose you to? What threats do your weaknesses expose you to? So the areas where you might have a little bit of a blind spot, how does that open you up to threats in the external world, meaning the environment in which you do business? So I'm going to pause there and just ask if there are any questions related to what I just shared. Thoughts, questions? Okay, cool. You guys are quiet today. I have to get some conversation going. All right, so here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull out your participant guide. I will drop it again just in case there was someone who joined us after I dropped it the first time. The way that this session is structured today is very, I can't do two things at one time. Hold on. Okay, there we go. It's very workshop based. And so we're going to be doing a lot of working with the information that we're going to be covering. Someone said it's still early. I'm a morning person. So my daughter told me the other day, she was like, it was like 6 a.m. She was like, Mom, you have way too much energy in the morning. I can't help it. Now, when 2 o'clock strikes, that's a whole nother story. But hey, I'll give you all the energy I got at this moment. So pull out your participant guide. And what I want you to do is I want you to take a look at the SWOT grid that's blank. And I want you to think about your business. And you don't have to put down 2 items. You could just do 1 item per box. But I want you to start to get comfortable with how to populate a SWOT, because it's really important that we do this kind of activity, whether it be for your business or for your department or whatever it is. So I'm going to give you a couple minutes and I want you to populate, what are your strengths internally? What are some of your weaknesses internally? And when you look external to your department or to your business, what are some opportunities that you can lob onto and take advantage of? And what are some things that are maybe threatening your business or your livelihood as a business? So it's going to be quiet for a moment, but I'm going to ask that you guys take some time to jot some things down, and then I want to hear from you. All right, one more minute. All right, talk to me. What are some aha moments you had as you kind of populated this grid that kind of gives you a picture of your business? What are some aha moments? Go ahead, Lisa.
So as I was, right, I don't know how to describe it. Like heartily avoiding the lower left corner of my grid um, because, obviously you kind of get into the routine of doing the things you do and you keep the truck moving, right? Well, it occurred to me, I was like, as a PR and media professional, I'm used to telling the stories of, local businesses' successes to the media. And then it's all of a sudden you're on the news or you're in the newspaper or whatever. It's great. And then it occurred to me as I was writing down my other quadrants, there is a tremendous opportunity for me that I haven't even tapped into. And it's the booming real estate market that's going on all over Chicago.
Mhm.
And so I was like, there's probably something there that I could get into. So thank you for making me have a opportunities quadrant. That's great.
And I think that you make a really good point, Lisa, because I think more now than ever, there's we have to really think intently about that lower quadrant, that opportunity space. Because if we want to remain viable and we want to remain relevant in this current climate, we really have to seek those opportunities to kind of stretch our thinking. And that was hard for me even in 2020. It's like, okay, I got to think about how I deliver things very differently. And it was tough, but you figure it out real quick that if you don't get on the bus, it's going to leave you. And so I really encourage everyone to really spend that time thinking about what are some ways that you can really discover your it factor in other areas that you can be successful. So spend time revisiting that. So that's the first step that I would encourage anyone when you're doing a goal setting process, is to really take a look at your business and the health of your business before doing the goal setting process. Then what you want to spend some time to do is, now you're going to think about, okay, well, now that I know how I'm competing, and let me get the duplicate. Now that I know kind of a little bit about how I'm competing, this is blocking, I think, you guys. So let me try to move this. Okay. Now you're ready to set and measure the goal. So what gets measured gets done. And that's the thing that we want to think about. A lot of times we think about the challenges that we have with setting goals, and there's so many things that get in the way. But we have to think about, what are the key things that I'm going to do this year to propel my organization and my department to another level, and making sure that there aren't things that will get in the way and encroach upon that, because we have scope creep in our lives all the time, whether it's personal or professional. You set out at the beginning of the year and you have these grandiose ideas. You're like, man, I'm killing it this year. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. By the time you get to March, it's like, what the heck happened? And so you're kind of thrown for a loop because so many other priorities start to come in. But if we can get really clear about what's important to us and focus on those things, then at the end of the year, we can say, wow, I really had a successful year because I stayed focused. So setting the goal and then measuring it. So goals are kind of like a bittersweet thing for us. So Eckhoff offered this definition, and I loved it because of some of the components in it. And this is on page 2 of your participant guide. It's kind of a fill in the blank to make sure you guys are sticking with me during this. So it's goal setting is the action of a person who has the confidence, commitment, motivation, and knowledge necessary to attain a goal that is specific, challenging, measurable, and relevant within a specified amount of time. I love that definition. And I think what calls out to me is the first part of it that says we have the confidence. So if you're going into saying, I'm going to accomplish this audacious goal, if we lack the confidence to do so, then we're going to constantly talk ourselves out of doing it. I'm going to give a perfect example, one that many of us struggle with every year, and it's losing weight. Do we have the confidence to make it happen? Do we have the commitment that's needed to get up at 5 in the morning to make that happen? Ellen is like, absolutely not. That's way too early. Are we motivated? And do we have the know-how, the knowledge to know what to eat, when to eat it, what exercise is going to help us achieve our goals? And so goal setting is about that rigor around creating all of these different elements. And then once you have that down, is the goal challenging enough? Can I measure it? Can I get on the scale every other week and measure my progress? Is it very specific? And is it relevant to what I want to accomplish? So that's the reason why it's bittersweet is because we get excited about the idea of accomplishing something new, about making a big deal out of something that we thought that we could never accomplish. The bitter part is when we get into it and our energy level goes down and it's not as exciting anymore. What will we summons from within to keep us moving forward? Because we know that that's the thing that we're supposed to do. What will we summons from within to keep us charging ahead, one foot in front of the other, to keep us moving towards our goals? Here are the 5 goal setting principles that I kind of want you to ground yourself in. Making sure that your goal has clarity, that there's some challenge related to it, that you can muster up some commitment for it. How will feedback happen, whether it be if you're an organization of one? What does that, even within that, what does that feedback look like with yourself around what am I doing well? What do I need to do different? How do I change course? And then the complexity of it. How many different other factors are needed in order to help me accomplish this goal? Challenge and complex are 2 different things. So it can be challenging, but it doesn't have a whole lot of different facets or a whole lot of different other resources that you need to call upon. But complexity is where you might need to call on other resources, other people, other support in order to help you achieve that goal. So here are the different types of goals. And when you read the literature, you will see that there's so many different kind of thoughts around different types of goals, but I thought this was most appropriate. So you have your time-based goals, goals that are long-term or short-term. So long-term goals are things like we want to be the premier organization within the DuPage area with, capturing 90% of the market share. That's a long-term goal. A short-term goal would be kind of those milestone things that you do in order to accomplish that longer-term goal. So when you think about your business and you think about your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, what are some of those longer-term goals you will want to focus on? And what are some of those short-term milestone things that you're going to do to help you achieve this bigger goal? I kind of liken it to a salami. Like when you think about a huge piece of salami, it's really hard to think about consuming that at one given time. And so you just chunk it down into smaller pieces in order for it to be ingestible. Same with goals. You have some big things you want to do with your organization. That's amazing. But you also want to think, well, what do I need to do year 1, year 2, year 3 to accomplish it? Performance-based goals are just that. You take a look at your performance related to, it could be around customer satisfaction. It could be around patient satisfaction. It can be around employee engagement. It could be a number of different things that really looks at the performance of the organization. Financial performance is another area that this would align with. The third type of goal is quantitative or qualitative. A quantitative goal is one that you have metrics associated with. So improve in customer satisfaction to 80th percentile by the end of the year. That's a quantitative goal. More of a qualitative goal are some of those behavioral based goals. So if you're a director within a larger organization, you probably have competencies or standards of behavior. And a lot of organizations struggle with, how do I quantify behavioral based goals? And there is a way to quantify it, and I'll show you a couple of slides on how you're actually able to do that. So some organizations have to have qualitative goals because a percentage of their goals is quantitative, and they also have a percentage of their goals qualitative, which are the behavioral standards. And then you have outcome-based goals versus process-oriented goals. And some organizations will call these goals kind of improvement goals. So outcome-based is an example of launch a website by the end of the quarter. Process is holding those weekly meetings with website redesign team to review task and progress. Notice there is no percentage or quantifiable number associated here, but it's still a very important process within an organization. And sometimes we may year one have to do a process-oriented goal or an improvement goal, like designing a new customer satisfaction survey. So that year one, you're going to design the survey. Year two is where you can actually associate metrics with it, making it more of a quantitative goal. Any thoughts or questions? Nope. All right, cool. All of us, I'm sure, have heard something about the anatomy of a goal, which is, how do I set a goal? And this is, the SMART goal: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time bound. So specific is obvious. How specific, the more specific you are with the goal, the easier it is for us to attain it. And I'll give you some examples of this on the next slide. How can I measure it? And I mentioned before, if I'm not able to measure the goal, then I need to go back. Because if I'm not able to measure it, I'm not able to track it. I'm not able to course correct. I'm not able to do any of those things. So how can I measure it? So for example, let's say it's you are launching a website. How do you measure that? So one of the questions you can ask yourself is, as a result of me getting a website, what will that get for me? Or what will that do for me? Well, if I get a new website, that's going to increase my customer base. Okay, so to what % do you want to increase your customer base? Oh, I want to increase my customer base by 20%. Okay, so that may be the goal. The goal may be, I want to increase my customer base by 20%. The action might be create a website. So that's how you want to think about the goal. It's if you set the goal, ask yourself, what does this get me? And then you can identify the goal, and then the action step is probably the thing you started with. Is it attainable? Now, let's not try to, in a year, say, I'm going to go from 15% customer satisfaction to 100% in a year. Is that really feasible? Is that really attainable? And maybe it's doing milestone goals each year to get to that 100%. Maybe you have to do it over a course of 2 years, but you don't want to set yourself up for failure out of the gate. So you want to make sure it's attainable. And is it relevant to your business? Does it make sense for you? And do you have time bounds associated with it? Is it by the end of the year? Is it by first quarter? Is it this something you want to achieve each quarter? Is this by year 2? So you want to have some time associated with each of those. So in your participant guide at the bottom of page 2, when you think about your business, which do you think is the most appropriate? A time-based goal, a performance-based goal? And I'll go back to that slide. Quantitative or qualitative, or outcome versus process oriented. So I want you to check the box. Where do you find yourself living most? And you may have 2 that works best for you. So I want you to just check a couple of boxes. What type of goal works best for you in your business? What did some of you check? I'm curious. I know there's probably a black box in the screen, but that's me looking at you guys. What are some of the types of goals you guys typically set or need to set within your organization? Or if you've never thought of it this way, what are some that make sense for you? Thoughts? Trying to see what's in the chat. No thoughts? Let me see if I have any in the chat. No. Okay. All righty. So you may find that you have a compilation of several of these. For me, when I'm working with clients, a lot of them are performance based. And the question then becomes, are they going to be associated with merit or not? So there's a whole nother level of conversation related to that. We'll talk about that in a little bit. If you're working by yourself, will you give yourself a bonus if you accomplish a certain goal? That's a question that you can ponder, but something that you want to definitely think about. All right. All right, so here's some things that you want to ask yourself as you're setting goals. And I mentioned this before. It's an important question to ask yourself because you want to get at a point where you're measuring the goal. What will this get me? I want to improve my website. What will this get me? And the reason why you want to ask yourself, because there's a difference between a goal and there's a difference between a tactic or an action. And where you're trying to get first is the goal, and what comes later is the action. So the goal is improved customer flow or market share. The tactic is the website. So think about, asking yourself those questions. Where will I access the data? And can it be measured? How can I measure this information? If you can't answer that question, you have to go back. How will I communicate progress? So if I'm working in an organization where there's at least 2 of us, how will I communicate our progress? Do you have a communication board that you can then supply information to? Do you communicate via email? Will you talk about it during your monthly meetings? How will you communicate progress? And how will you keep those goals visible? Because when people see that this is what we're trying to accomplish as an organization and you're sharing with them the progress, then they can be all in with you. But if they hear about a goal once and don't hear about it again, it's really easy for people to kind of go off in their own direction. So how do I make this progress visible for myself and for the people I work with? How will I hold myself and others accountable? And how will I celebrate milestones? We forget about that all the time. You're accomplishing goals, especially if you're with other people. How do we celebrate those successes? And sometimes as business owners, we just go, 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 go. And we don't take a pause to reflect and say, okay, I can pop my collar. I did that. I mean, I rocked that one. That was really good. We need to do that for ourselves because that's what continues to fuel us and propel us forward. What tools will you use to house the goals? And I'll drop a tool in the chat. And I know Rick has a tool too that he uses to help business leaders house their goals. And so I can drop mine, and then I'm sure he can drop his as well. And what key actions will help you achieve this goal? Those are things that you really want to spend some time asking yourself about. So I want to just get your thoughts, and I'm going to need you guys to unmute yourself for this. Here's some goal examples. When we think about our SMART methodology, does this goal align with SMART methodology? Contact potential clients each week. Does this align with?
No.
Nope. Nope, that does not work for us. Why? What's wrong with it? What's it missing?
The amount of clients, perhaps,
Mm-hmm.
the measurable piece of it.
Yep. So the client piece is missing. What else is missing?
It's not specific enough.
Yeah, it's not really specific enough. Could this be a tactic though?
Absolutely.
That's associated with the bigger goal. Yes.
Mhm.
All right. So here's the next one. Improve financial position within my company. Thumbs up or thumbs down? Does it work or not?
Down.
Down. Yeah. We see what we're trying to improve, but we don't have any measure associated with it. It's not time bound. I reckon because it's financial for the company that it is relevant, but we're missing some key pieces in order for that to make sense for us. How about this one? By December 2021, increased customer satisfaction results from 80th percentile to 90th percentile as measured by satisfaction survey.
Yes.
Yeah, that one has everything. And so when you're writing a goal, you'll want to make sure that it has these elements. When do we want to accomplish this by? Am I increasing, decreasing, or maintaining? What is it that I'm increasing, decreasing, or maintaining? What is the metric that I'm looking at, and how am I going to measure it? So that's the anatomy of the goal that you want to have when you're thinking about your business. How about this one? Redesign website to attract 50% more clients by the end of the year.
Possibly if it's attainable.
Yeah, right, right. So what we don't see is the from to and the to, right? So we see where we're going to, but we don't necessarily see where we're coming from. And so that could have some possibility for us, if we knew where we were coming from. So yeah, great. So number 2 is the one that holds the most for us in terms of it being a SMART goal. Gain muscle. Yay or nay?
No.
Nope. Mm-mm. Nope. We don't have anything that just like, okay, cool. How are we going to get there? What are we going from? What are we going to? So yeah, that one would not work in terms of setting a goal. So I want us to try this. So on your participant guide, page 3, there is a goal section, and it has goal 1 and goal 2. So what I want you to do is think about your organization. You kind of did a SWOT already. And so what I want you to do is think about what direction you want to go with your organization this year and write a goal that's SMART. And then just write a couple of key actions that you're going to take for that goal. So I'm going to give you a couple of minutes to do that. And then I want to be able to hear back from some of you. And when you're ready, you can drop drop your goal in the chat, and then we can kind of give some feedback on it. If anyone wants to brave that. So Ellen, when you reconnect with the community, what will that get you?
Hopefully more people coming into the library, more people using the library. Our, numbers have gone down with the pandemic. So
Yeah.
we're hoping to bring people back and, you know, remind them that we're here for them and that the library has a ton of resources that that we have that are available for them.
Okay. Do you have a sense of what you need that library usage to be?
I mean, it can be whatever, people need.
Mhm.
So obviously for us, it's, you know, working with kids. I'm a children's services supervisor. So we
Mhm.
want to make sure, a lot of kids have lost ground this year.
Mm.
And so we want to make sure that they're getting into the library and they're working to kind of catch up in areas where they've fallen behind. A big way of doing that is coming back to the library, getting more books in kids' hands,
Mhm.
and doing that.
Okay. And so you could, so the reconnecting with the community and what that looks like could be the tactic. And maybe the goal is to improve library usage I'm just going to throw out a number, to 15% by end of 2021. And that would be the goal. And then the reconnecting with the community is the means by which you will be able to accomplish that goal of increasing library usage. Cool. Thank you for the sharing, Ellen.
Oh, no problem. Thanks for your input.
For fiscal year 2020, align CMH services within ECS programs by developing a framework and policies and procedures for home visiting and ECE programs. Cool. Cheryl, what will that get you?
Aligned services.
Okay.
So clarity around leadership of what the work looks like. Consistency in programming.
So it sounds like it is a lot around aligning. So when you align, what's the bigger picture? So once you achieve alignment, what does that drive for your business?
Clear service line, like you could tell I'm kind of just thinking on my feet here.
Yeah, this is good. This is good. This is good.
It's more so CMH means children's mental health and early
Mhm.
childhood services is ECS and early childhood education is ECE.
Mhm.
So I think because we have children's mental health services and a variety of programs, sometimes they look a little different due to funding, but overall, I would like it to be some clarity around what the role of children's mental health is within our programs, because not everybody who's leading those programs has an understanding or
Okay.
is under children's mental health. We're just a part of their programming.
Okay.
So I think, yeah, that alignment is and clarity is like for ease of services and I think leadership understanding the role. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure.
And with all of that, will that potentially increase the number of children that you're able to service then?
Yeah, so I think it would also increase like funding opportunities as well.
Okay. All right. So you just right there hit two goals. One is to increase funding opportunities to XYZ%. That could be one goal associated with that. And the other is to increase number of children that you're able to service by XYZ% or number. And then those are your two goals. And then the way that which you're going to do that is what you dropped in the chat, which is the
Okay.
education that you talked about, making sure there's alignment. So that would be a great means to meet the goal of increasing funding and increasing the children that you serve.
Got it. That helps. Okay, thank you.
Yeah. All right, Lisa has gained 100% more followers, potential clients before the holidays. Expand my social media engagement of Instagram and Facebook by publishing weekly Reels, stories, Q&As, interactive thoughts, redirects to my website that each focus on closed media campaign and successes, AKA Humble brags. Oh, I ain't never heard that before. That's cool. Humble brags. So does this fit the SMART goal? Do we know what we're measuring? Yeah. Do we have, is it time bound? Before the holidays, so November. Is it specific? Yep. For you, Lisa, you can only answer, is it attainable?
It should be if I didn't have a bazillion distractions and I was better at time management.
Yeah. There goes part two. So yeah, so and I think that's a really important point is like, yeah, like this is a great goal. You're like, man, if I can achieve this, the floodgates would just open for me. But we have these competing priorities that start to creep in, right? And so how do we start to manage that? And how do we start to say, I may not be able to do that, but here's a resource who could. So notice I didn't say no, because a lot of times people have a really hard time saying no. And we don't say no, we say, here's what I'm able to do for you. Here's a resource that you can tap into. So that's a way to say it, something different than saying no. All right, any others? Any others that you want to throw out there? Goals that match the SMART methodology. And the nice thing about being very specific about these goals is when it's time for you to say, here's what I can do, or the no, you can say that easier, because it's like, does this align with what this person's asking me for? Does it align with what it is I want to accomplish? And if the answer to that is no, then you have to defer them to somewhere else, because your business is at stake, your department is at stake. And so we have to be able to defer people to other avenues. So we're going to take a quick 10-minute break. So we're going to come back at 10:05 if everybody is Central Time. And then when we come back, I want to introduce the idea around measurement for organizations that kind of need that in their life. And so let's sync our watches and come back at 10:05. See you back.
Chrissy.
Tish,
Yes.
before we get started, can
Yeah.
I just bounce something off you? Marianne Picorni with the YWCA. And I know we have a lot of our team on here. And so I'm just thinking about, when we're looking at our goals as an agency, you have a lot of early childhood leadership here. But a
Mhm.
lot of times our goals are prescriptive and already like given to us. Like you have Damaris and Lynetta, who are early childhood leaders and home visiting, as well as Margaret. Like that's a grant. Our goals come from a grant. Or Cheryl spoke about children's mental health. And there is a financial goal, but it's not necessarily one that we all make. Like I have a goal right now around providing substitute teachers. And so sometimes the concepts aren't always just ours. Is there going to be a piece about motivating people or teams around goals? Because we have a lot of like division strategies where there's, you know, a combined goal that's not necessarily created by us. Does that make sense?
That
But
makes
we have to
perfect
carry
sense.
it out.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And we can definitely talk about that. I think that's a really good question.
And I think that's probably why some of the team is a little bit more quiet, because we have some goals, but sometimes, and we have some input within those, you know, frameworks, but not always we're creating our personal goals, our professional development goals, yes. But sometimes some of those larger are, you know, by grants or more prescriptive, if that makes sense. And so I think
Okay.
that's why there's been a little bit of, you know, not as much participation, because I think they're trying to see themselves in where that space is, if that makes sense.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you for that context. That makes perfect sense. And we're at our time. So welcome back, everyone. Marianne asked a great question. And Marianne, that's a challenge that not only, it's not necessarily a challenge, it's just a reality, right? A lot of organizations face that reality where there are goals that cascade down, that sometimes people are like, well, that don't have nothing to do with me, or how do I impact that particular goal? It's a goal that I have to have, but how do I impact that goal? And so I liked hearing the fact that within your organization, so there are these goals that kind of are cascaded down to you from a higher level, but you also have some development goals, like personal goals that you have, and development goals. So I would say when you're creating those, the methodologies that we talked about can definitely apply to those. In the situation where goals are handed down to you, there's that reality that it is what it is. And in terms of how do we inspire people to align around that goal is one, what are some of the incentives associated with that goal? How are people communicated to in terms of what is their piece of the pie to that goal? Because sometimes we have to stretch further to see, well, what's my piece of that goal? So for example, I worked in healthcare for a long time, and the organization was big on patient satisfaction. But there are departments that don't touch patients, but the directors were expected to carry a patient satisfaction goal. And so we had leaders that were thinking, I don't touch patients. How on earth can I be held accountable for a goal that I don't have an impact on? So we had to take a step back and think, well, what role can you play, even indirectly, in influencing a patient satisfaction goal when you don't touch patients? It's the work that we do in hallways. How are we directing patients in the hallways? How are we engaging with families that you see in the cafeteria? When we had a responsibility to round. And so, when you're rounding with patients, what is that experience like? So it's really taking a step back to say, well, what piece of that pie do you have? And it may be an indirect piece of the pie, but it's helping people to see what their purpose is to that bigger picture, what their piece of it is. And so when you think about the goals that you guys have, Marianne, that kind of comes down from the organization or from the source, the grant source, what are some of those goals that you can kind of see how they can apply even just a piece of it to staff? Or are they all of them, people don't have any piece of it at all?
Well, and I'm thinking, sometimes there might be a goal, but the method of reaching that goal is something that, you can work on,
Yeah.
those kinds of pieces. We might have to get X amount of home visits in, but the strategies that we find those families or, something like that.
Yeah. And I like that piece of it is important so I may not be able, the goal itself is like, what role may I play? And it is in the tactics or the action steps that you can take in order to apply it. And it might seem like you know, this is a minor piece of it, but it's a piece of it, and every little bit counts. And so I would say, as you and your team are meeting, is to sit down and back into the goal and say, okay, what piece of this do we have? And what strategies can we employ in order to help, or action steps can we employ in order to help achieve that bigger goal? And then I think when you start to have that level of conversation, then you can get some energy around it. Because that's what I saw in the healthcare organizations when we started to kind of take a step back and think about it differently. Then the director was like, oh, okay, I can see that. And then they were more inclined to support that goal because they can see what piece they had in achieving it.
Yeah, thanks for that, Tish, because we do have division strategy goals where every member of the early childhood team and youth team are part of those. And so, you know, it's probably that's a key factor in motivating, like figuring out some of the strategies, because they're all assigned to something, right? They're all assigned to one of the strategies. And then, you know, how do you keep people motivated around that?
So I would say, ask the question of what piece of this can we own? And when you can start the conversation in that way, it really helps to take things to a whole different level, is what piece of this can we own?
Well, probably too conveying why they were chosen for that, because a lot of times I don't think they see their talents. And I mean, they're strategically put within those division strategies because they have a particular, you know, expertise in that.
Yeah. Yeah. And so all those are really good ways to kind of get at it. And then also to keep people rallied around those personal goals that they set that are very specific to their role, and making sure that that always is on the forefront as well.
Well,
Thanks
thank
for
you.
that question. I really appreciate that, because that's a big reality that a lot of people have. It's stuff that we call that cascading. And the other thing too with cascading, I didn't put this in the slides, but it's certainly something that is worth the conversation. So when you think about alignment of goals for our larger organizations, it's what our executives carry as a goal, what our directors carry as a goal, what our managers and our individual contributors carry. That goal language might look completely different, but it's associated with the same goal. So when we think about cascading goals, cascading doesn't mean mirroring. Cascading is just, here's the overarching goal. How do I contribute to my vice president's goal? And how does my staff help me achieve my goal? And so we call that cascading. But we don't have to have carbon copy goals in order to help accomplish it. So for example, I'm going to go back to this patient satisfaction goal idea. So at the executive level, the goal is to improve patient satisfaction to the 90th percentile by end of 2021 as measured by Press Ganey results. That's the executive's goal. And so a director level goal might be specific to their department. So to achieve patient satisfaction, theirs might not be the 90th because they may only be at the 40th percentile. And so theirs may be to get to the 50th percentile that still contributes to the bigger goal. Now, the staff level, theirs might be more tactical. And so their tactical goal might be staff will conduct AIDED 100% of the time with patients. AIDED is this introduction process that they do. So staff will conduct AIDED 100% of time with patients. So the language is different, but they all connect to the bigger goal. And so that's what we want to think about with cascading, is it starts here and then it just funnels down, not mirrored, just aligned. All right, so we had Catherine drop in a thought. Complete 85% of outreach leading to increased student enrollment and parent engagement by the start of 2021-22 school year. This model can be used for future funding opportunities for CMH while also increasing pre-K enrollment, lowering food insecurities, increasing kindergarten readiness, supports for childcare, mental health, home visiting, and other family needs, AKA concrete resources and social connection. So does Catherine's goal meet the SMART criteria? Thumbs up, thumbs down, or sideways? What do you guys think? Yeah, it's very specific. And she has some other, and there's some other goals that can even be, that's embedded in there as well. When we talk about increasing pre-K enrollment, when we talk about lowering food insecurities. So there's several goals that are in there that can be extracted And that's a lot of focus for the year, Catherine. You have a lot of work ahead of you. Hats off to you for that great work that you're going to be doing. So when we think about where we've been so far in our time together, what are some aha moments that you've had thus far? What are some things that you're going to take away from our conversation and do differently or implement in your practices moving forward? And you could drop it in the chat if you feel more comfortable there. I see some typing, so we'll wait a moment.
Tish, I think even just how you're modeling this with us now, working, especially I do have team members here, not challenging each other, but like really talking through these, right? And just how you're modeling, like, is that really a goal or is that a strategy? And how do we really measure it? And so I think even just some of these practical examples of watching you model how to think through is something that I would, take back.
Okay, good. Thanks, Cheryl.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa is figuring out how I will hold myself accountable for my goals and steps. Ooh. How will you hold yourself accountable? That's a big one. Like, that's an important part of it, is that personal accountability. Do you work solo, Lisa?
I do. And
Okay.
oftentimes it's a freight train to the end of the project. But obviously I break down every client project into steps and, avenues and things like that. So all those tactical goals, or not tactical goals, all those tactics and things that I have to do along the way, you just blow through them. And I don't generally assess my progress or my success on each of those individual segments. I just get through to my deadlines.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, so far so good, knock on wood. Jeez.
Yeah.
You never know. I mean, I want to be thorough and I want to be accurate. So, accountability on each individual segment is probably just as important as the end goal itself.
Yeah. And it's important to not overwhelm yourself in the process, right? And so for you may think about your goal development process, and you may think, I'm more concerned for this particular goal with the achievement of the goal. But for this particular goal, I really need to hone in on the specific steps. And so it might look different for each of your goals, and that's okay. It's about what works best for you, but you don't want your process to overwhelm you to the point that it gets in the way of you being able to do great work. And you also don't want to invest the time in really being diligent and rigorous about your goal setting to the point that it compromises your success as a business. So all of those things are, it's that balance of looking at each of those. Okay, cool. So I want us to take a look at goal setting from a different facet. I know that we have people who are who look at goals from different aspects. We have individual contributors, we have business owners, we have directors within organizations. So I just want to introduce this idea around goal scales and what that looks like, and how do we measure goals that are more behavioral based? How do we measure those goals that are more qualitative versus quantitative? Because that's a really important thing. And I'm so glad, Marianne, you asked that question, because the other challenge that organizations have is when we have behavioral based goals and they're so subjective, how do I measure people on something so subjective? And so there's a way that we can, that I want to kind of introduce to you on how to do that in a way that's easier. All right. I'm hoping that I'm sharing the right screen because I got two going. Let's see, duplicate. All right, so here's a goal scale. Now, some of us may say, I'm okay with just saying is if I hit this target, that's good. I don't need an outstanding, exceeds, meets, or what have you. But some organizations do. Some organizations need a 5-point scale in order to measure goals, particularly if they have it associated with merit. But research is showing that a lot of organization is going away from associating merit increase to performance evaluation. So that's a whole nother realm. We won't touch that. But here's a scale. So let's say that the goal is similar to that customer satisfaction. So by December 2021, increase customer satisfaction results to the 9th percentile as measured by satisfaction survey. Let's say that you are wanting to really differentiate performance. So you want to really acknowledge people or yourself for going above and beyond. Meets expectation, that 3 level is meeting the goal, 90th percentile. What happens is a lot of organizations or individuals will say, well, I hit the 90th percentile, so that's outstanding. That's a 5 level. That's not kosher related to how we think about goals. If the goal is to get to 90%, that is meets expectations. Anything above that is what we call gravy. And so meets expectations, you may set your meets expectation range between 90 and 93%. Exceeds expectations might be between 94 and 97%, and outstanding is 98 or higher. And then partially meets and does not meet, this is the scale that can be associated for that. So I just wanted to introduce this idea of scales in case that's something that is needed within your organization that you think will be helpful, but you may not currently have in place. This helps tremendously when you're trying to differentiate performance with people who go above and beyond and people who may not be meeting that threshold. This gives you some language to hold people accountable and to reward success. And this may be something that you want to do for your own individual businesses. If you're an entrepreneur, you may say, you know what, I want to be able to see how I'm performing. So I want to do a scale like this so I can see when I'm exceeding my expectations, when I'm doing outstanding, and what's associated with that. What will happen with that? Will I invest in another piece of equipment or new technology if I hit a 5 level? Or if I'm at partially meets expectations, what are some development things I might need to do in order to improve my performance in this space? So it just gives you some really good, it's a pulse check that you can use. So what about qualitative goals, those behavioral based goals that are so subjective? How can you really measure someone on their reliability or how they take initiative? It first starts with when you have behavioral based goals, individual goals, is defining what it is. Because initiative to me and initiative to the next person can look completely different. And so the first step is to define, what do we mean as an organization by initiative? That's the first step. The next thing is, how are you going to quantify or qualify outstanding performance related to initiative, exceeds expectations related to initiative? And so you have to have criteria related to the scale. So outstanding looks like results indicate clearly exceptional performance or usually high caliber, remarkable achievement at a pace-setting performance, associates contributions are significant to the organization. That's how this organization is defining outstanding performance. This is what it looks like for exceeds and so on and so forth. So if you're going down the path of qualitative goals because you have behavioral standards, that's important. So we don't only want to know how you achieve those numerical goals. We also want, behavior is important to us. And so how am I going to begin measuring the behavior in a way that's more objective? And so this is a way that you could do that. This is designed, certainly there are some core competency models out there that you can use, but this is designed to be developed per organization. So each organization would create their own kind of scales based on their language and what they're looking to achieve. Any questions on that? Cool. So, oh, I didn't mean to do that. Hold on. I came out of that. I didn't mean to. Oh, shoot. I completely closed out of it. You guys seeing me doing all this on my desktop? Let's see.
No.
No,
Okay.
No.
All right. Let me go back. Give me 1 second. Okay, we're back. Here we go. Okay. So here's another thing that we want to have a conversation about. So now that we know, one, we got a sense of who we are as an organization and doing a SWOT of what we do well and what are some of our threats, because that really informs what you're going to do in terms of goals. Then you set your goals using the SMART methodology. Making sure that it's measurable, making sure it's relevant, time bound, you have some specific metrics in there. So when you start to craft a goal, ask yourself, so if I do this, what will it get me? Just so that you can get to that goal versus the tactic that you may have started with. So then once you've kind of done that, then you have to think to yourself, well, how am I going to house these goals? Where am I going to make sure they're visible to me? Can you store them in your head? Yes, but that's dangerous. So will you store it in an Excel document, or will you store them in a Word document? Or some organizations have what we call balanced scorecards. And what this is let's say you have goals that are by pillar. So you have some financial goals, you have some customers service or satisfaction goals, you have some process goals. Then they use a balanced scorecard to be able to measure and capture the performance across each of those goals. There are also some very simplistic ways to do it. So I'll drop a document in the chat that is a very simplistic way to house your goals. And then Rick also has a document if he wants to kind of drop his in there as well. So the one that I'm going to drop in here is just a simple basic Word document that you can use to really think through your goals and how you're going to achieve it. Okay. All right, did you guys get that? It's called the goal planning sheet. Got it? Okay, awesome. So what this is it's a basic document that just outlines your goal language. So you drop what your goal language is there. What are some of your key measures? Key actions that you're going to take. And many of you drop that in the chat as well, some of those key actions that you're taking to achieve the bigger goal. How will you measure this particular goal? Is there an internal measurement that you have, or is there some type of industry measurement that you have? Or if you have a funder, do they have a tool or a measurement that you can use to measure that particular goal? What resources are needed? That is key. So if you have to really give some thought to what resources are we going to need as a team to accomplish this goal. And if we don't have key resources, then we might need to go back to the drawing board, or we might need to advocate for some resources to achieve this goal. You don't want to set yourself up for failure out of the gate by not having the conversation with yourself or your team around, do we need extra people? Do we need some interns? Do we need additional dollars? Do we need additional training? What is it that we need, and have that conversation? What's at stake if I don't accomplish this goal? What could we potentially use? This is where you start to prioritize your goals and what you focused on. If I don't do this, what is at stake? Or if I do this, what's the benefit of this goal? And so many of you, it's being able to have funding for your programs. That's the benefit of accomplishing this goal. How will I hold myself accountable? Lisa was talking about this. How will I hold myself accountable to accomplish this goal? And how will I celebrate success? So those are some of the ideas, and this is a goal sheet you can use. It just makes it real simple, and you can have it just saved in your Word document or print it out and put it on your poster board or wherever you want to put it, but have it visible. How many goals should you have? I'm just going to throw it out. You can throw it in the chat. How many goals should you have? Two to three. Okay. 3. Yep. Yeah, we want to be able to be around that 3, 4 mark at most. Susie says many as it takes. Yeah, you want to be around that 3-ish, 4 mark. If you're over that, then we become scattered. And really, what is it that we're trying to accomplish? So if you can be between that 3, 4 range for goals, and you're in a really sweet spot. Now, I've been in organizations, have consulted with organizations where their leaders had 10 goals, 10, and that was a good day. That was a good year. 10. I'm like, oh my God. And so then they did percentages. So each goal just got a really small percentage. So it's like, what's the point? What's the point? Like, it doesn't give you that specificity or that direction that you need. So keep it simple. I'm going to pause. Rick just dropped his goal worksheet into the chat. Rick, do you want to walk them through the elements of your goal worksheet?
Sure. I mean, it has many of the similar elements as Tish's, but it's, when we talk about, we've spent this hour and a half talking about goal planning, goal setting and goal planning. It's really important that we think about, and I use that term on purpose, that we think about goal planning as a process and not just, hey, I've got a goal. That's why a lot of New Year's resolutions fall flat and don't make it to February. So the process that I use and I coach to and I use myself is a 10-step process that looks at, obviously, the SMART goal that Tish talked about. I've added my own WAY at the front of it, because while the implication is that a goal should be written, I maintain that it should be stated emphatically and empirically, that if it's not written, it's not real. Mm-hmm. And so, and Tish talked about the alignment, and kind of to Marianne's question about how do you make maybe a goal that is cascades down from the organization, what is your component of it? And so the why is, what part of that is yours? What, even if it's very indirect, how can you become a better leader in the organization, or a better contributor by virtue of some direct or indirect attachment to that goal? And then we talk about the rewards and consequences, because these two, what are the rewards of achieving this goal? And what are the consequences if you don't achieve the goal? It speaks to the so what, because quite frankly, if the so what isn't significant enough, you're not going to burn calories to make it happen. You just won't. Mm-hmm. And if the so what is minimal, even on a cascaded goal, you'll do just enough to not get in trouble. You'll do just enough to get it done. So you have to have that, you have to internalize, why is this goal important? And that piece of it will also speak to the time management that Tish will talk about. And then 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8 are really you'll notice the orientation of the sheet goes left to right now. Talk about the obstacles. How do you overcome those obstacles? What are the actions that you're going to take? who's accountable, and what's the time frame. These steps all really speak to, when you think about, if you identify all the obstacles, the potential obstacles that could prevent you from achieving that goal, such as, I mean, we got all the basics, money, time, etc. One of the ones we often overlook is our own attitude towards that goal. So it really gives you a structured thought process to look at, what are those obstacles and how do I overcome them? So it gives you, and as specific as you can get with the 4 through 8, the better. And then of course, step 9 is the end date of the goal. And the mistake that a lot of people make is they arbitrarily set, oh, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by June 30th. Okay, what is so magical about June 30th? And so what it does is it sets up a structure that says the end date, step 9, can be no sooner than any of the dates that you've associated with overcoming the obstacles. So it gives a logical progression there. And then of course, the last piece that oftentimes people overlook is, what is your affirmation for that goal? What is, for those that use affirmations, it's, it's just it creates that positive mindset around achieving that goal. And the stronger the affirmation, the stronger the attachment to that affirmation, the higher chance of achieving that goal. So just a quick and dirty rundown on the, while it looks like a form to fill out, I always position it as, think of it as a way to structure your thought process around how you're going to achieve that goal.
Yeah. Yeah. So however you choose to, thank you for that, Rick, because I really like your form. And so whatever works for you. So pick something that you can take what's here and put it out on paper so that it's visible, because that's really important. And it's always there for you to see. And it's always front of mind. So when you have to say to someone the no in the more politically correct way, you can do that confidently because you're taking a look at what you already have on your plate. Any thoughts or questions related to how you house your goals? Like, how do you make it visible and how do you think through it and put what's here out? Thoughts, perspectives? Nope. We're good? Okay, cool. So, let me share my screen. All right, so yeah, balanced scorecard. I would say keeping it simple is best, but I at least wanted to share with you guys a more, I don't want to use the word complex, but I'll say complex way to house goals if you have goals in different pillars, if you will. So here are some of the challenges we see with goal setting and execution. Choosing the priorities is really difficult. And so that's why you want to narrow down, once you do your SWOT of your business, based on the landscape, where do I need to focus my attention, and then focus on those priorities. Some of the other challenges is we don't have a sense of direction, which is why we do the SWOT. That provides us the direction. Everyday work and everyday fires somehow seems to get in the way of us focusing on those priorities. Do we have fires? Absolutely. When we start talking about time management, we're going to learn some strategies on how to decipher what we should focus on and what we should not focus on. And that is going to be hard for some of us, but it's going to be really necessary so that by the time you get to the end of the year, you feel like you've accomplished some great work. The what without the how. So we have what we want to accomplish, but sometimes we lack the how we're going to accomplish it. So having a goal planning sheet helps you to really articulate the how you're going to get that work done. That gives you your marching orders for the course of that quarter. You can do it by quarter, you can do it every 6 months, however it makes sense for you. Some organizations will do it quarterly, where they require their leaders to sit down quarterly, take a look at their goals, take a look at their action steps, look at what of those action steps they've accomplished, and then they plan for the next quarter. So here's the goal. What action steps now do I need to do in order to accomplish this goal? From quarter to quarter, sometimes those action steps change. And for some goals, it stays the same throughout the year. So it depends on your goal and what you're trying to accomplish. Not knowing what other departments are working on makes it difficult as well. If the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing, it makes it hard. So to be able to have some cross-sectional goal setting sessions, or what we call gallery walks of goals, is really, really helpful within larger organizations where the finance department knows what human resources is working on, and the child development area knows what security is working on. So it's that kind of alignment is really important. And there are times where in larger organizations, you're going to want to partner with other departments on goals. And so knowing each other, what each other is working on, and challenging each other on those goals is really healthy and important for execution at the organizational level. All right, so how do we follow up? And how do we give feedback on these goals, whether it be to yourself or other individuals? So here's the cycle again. And we talked about setting up, well, our SWOT, I'll put that here. Setting the goal, what are our key actions? How are we going to measure it? How are we evaluating progress? And evaluating progress, again, is sitting down, being intentional about sitting down with your goals and saying, am I meeting the mark or am I not? And if I'm not meeting a mark, how do I start to make some adjustments so that I make sure I reach goal attainment? And so evaluating progress can be if, let's say you're at the middle of the year. Your end of the year goal is to get to the 90th percentile. And right now you're only at the 45th percentile. What do you do? Do you change the goal? Do you step up your action steps? Do you realign some things? The one thing that's important is when you're setting goals is you've done your due diligence to make sure you set a relevant goal. So I don't advocate for leaders to just mid-year, because you're not meeting it, to just change it. No, we got to do some work. We have to put in the work. We have to think strategically about what's not working at this point that I need to adjust in order to help me reach that bigger goal that was really important to me at the beginning of the year. So the only way that I advocate for anyone to change a goal is if the business has completely changed, or if there was some unforeseen issue within the landscape or the climate. Then you might need to change. In 2020, a lot of people had to change their goals because people weren't in the office anymore. So they weren't able to make contributions that they made before. And so in those kinds of situations, it's appropriate, but those are rare. So if you set the goal, make sure it's relevant and attainable at the beginning, so that then you get to the middle of the year, we're not just saying, oh, I'm going to change it. Nope, we got to put in work, and then make some adjustments to your action steps in order to help you achieve that. So the part that makes this all doable is, how do we manage our time with everything that we have on the plate? And so that's what we're going to talk about next. But before we do that, I want us to put a bow on this conversation about goal setting and goal planning. So on page 2 of your participant guide, if you could go there, it's at the top of it, it's setting goals, and we can call it setting goals / measurement and follow up. I want you to take a minute to jot down, what are you already doing well? That's really important for us to assess when it comes to you assessing goals, setting goals, measuring goals. And it could be at the individual contributor level, director level, business owner level. What do you already do well? And then the second question I want you to answer is, what's most challenging and what am I going to do different? What's most challenging and what am I going to do different? So I want you to take a couple of minutes to just jot down some thoughts there. What do I already do well? And what is most challenging and what am I going to do different? So I'll give you about 2 minutes to do that. So what some of us may do well is out of the gate, we are guns blazing and we're good at setting it. But what we may not be good at is checking in on it throughout the year. And so what we might do differently is just add a reminder in our calendar every other month that we carve out maybe 15 minutes where we sit and assess our progress. Put that on the calendar. That might be what we do differently. Or what we might want to do differently is really understand the climate in which we're working now, because it might be different than it was 2 years ago. And so what we might do differently is conduct a new SWOT analysis to see what does my landscape look like and how do I then direct my efforts. Give me about 1 more minute. All right, so we spent some time figuring out what do we need to work on, what are our goals, and so how do we make sure stuff doesn't get in the way? How do we get her done? So I want to share with you this concept that comes from an organization called Vital Smarts, and it comes from some research done by David Allen, and his book is called Getting Things Done. And so he introduces a framework called CORE. And what CORE is, it takes a look at the different things that you want to do in order to get your inbox close to zero, I say, get what's in your brain out, and it helps us to be much more efficient with how we work. So the CORE represents capture and clarify, organize, reflect, and engage. So that's the framework. This typically takes a full day to do, but I'm going to give you enough just to make you dangerous and focus on capture and clarify. Those are the two things that I think you can walk away today. If you can kind of get a grasp on these things, really helps you to organize your time and your day. So the first one I want us to talk about is capture. So with capture, your mind is for having ideas, not holding them. So how often are we laying up at night just going through our brains around, okay, I need to do this tomorrow. Oh, I got to do that tomorrow. Oh, and the kids need this. Oh, and the hubby needs that. And your brain just goes nonstop. It feels like it never shuts down. And we're holding all this information in our head. And so what capture does is saying, let's take everything that you have going on here and get it out, and then assign meaning and action to it. So the whole process of capture is to get what's here out. And that's what I want us to do today. So we're actually going to do some actual work around this. And I'm hoping that we can eliminate some of the things that's got you, that's consuming you, and that's owning a part of you. That's why you're going to need your sheet of paper and your scissors and your pencil. So capture is what's got your attention. Things like on a professional side, your project deadlines, budgets are due, client referral programs, developing new service offerings, need to build a new website. All these things have got your attention. On the personal side, it's preparing to send the kids off to college, or potty training, family vacation, putting the house on the market, picking a different cell phone service. There's a myriad of different things that swarm around in our head. Can I get to the gym 5 days this week? Like all these different things that are swarming in our head. They're no good there. So we need to get them out so that we can start working it and we can get some sleep at night. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to take that piece of paper and I want you to fold it in half. Yeah, we'll just do half. And then what I want you to do is Well, see, for me, in order for me to know the half, I have to fold it in half, but some of you may have just been able to cut it. So I want you to cut down that center line. We're gonna make some cards. So then now you have these 2 sheets, and then I just want you to cut them about the size of a business card. All right. So you should have several sheets of paper. Now what I want you to do is I want you to take a moment, and you also have this same kind of grid on that time management page. You could do it on this, but there's several things we're going to do with this. So that's why I want you to cut up paper. For each piece of paper, what I want you to write down are the things that are consuming you right now. Whether it's personal or professional, the things that kind of have hold on you, that's swarming around in your brain. I want you to do 1 item per piece of paper. So I just want you to just have a complete brain dump right now on those items that are swarming in the head. The things that you've got to do can be emails, you got to do phone calls, you got to make whatever it is, put it on these slips of paper. And then I'll tell you what you're going to do with that.
Tish, I'm going to need about 17 more pieces of paper.
Yep, that might be the case. So go ahead and brain dump. If you need to grab 4 more pieces of paper, grab 4 more. So I'm going to give you 3 minutes to do this. All right, 1 more minute. All right. So now that you've gotten some of the stuff in your brain out, that's the process that you want to go through first. And you typically do a mind sweep every week, just to get kind of all that stuff out of your head and start to associate what you need to do with it. Now, as part of this process, what you want to think about is, what are the tools by which you're going to capture all this information? So for us, we just use these little slips of paper. But what other kind of capture tools can you use in order to, when you start to get these thoughts or these things that you have to do, you write them down, opposed to trying to house them in your brain? So do you have a to-do log? Do you use a calendar? Do you use email and then use it as mark unread, tablet or notepad? All of us have different capture tools that we use to try to manage what we have going on in our brain. What I want to invite you to do is pick 1, maybe 2 capture tools that you can use that can keep your brain free of all these different things. And so the questions that you want to ask yourself is, with whatever capture tool you use, is it accessible to you? Because you could be in the grocery store and you have a thought like, oh, shoot, I got to make sure I don't forget that. and get it out of your brain so that it doesn't consume you. Is it easy to use and is it reliable? So for example, a to-do log, is it accessible? Yes, generally accessible. Is it easy to use? Yep. Is it reliable? No, because I might forget it. Calendar, is it accessible for me? Yep. Is it easy to use? Yep. Is it reliable? Yes. And I can access it from multiple, I can use my phone, my iPad, my laptop. So it's cool. It's something that I find is really reliable for me and I use a lot. Email, marking messages as unread, things that you have to do. Is it accessible? Yes. Is it easy to use? Yes. Is it reliable? No, because you may forget to mark it as unread. So that I have to be very careful about using that as a capture tool. Tablets or notepads, is it accessible? Yep. Easy to use? Yep. Is it reliable? If you don't carry it with you, absolutely not. It's not reliable. So I want you to think about what are some capture tools you have so that we can stop relying so heavily on trying to house everything here and put it somewhere that we can then, it's trustworthy and we can always go back to it so that we then can assign what we're going to do with that information. So on the next page of your participant guide, I want you to jot down capture tools that you use. Some of us use, I'm a Post-it note person. So if my camera was turned towards my monitor, what you guys would see is a sea of yellow. I use Post-it notes all the time. So that's one of my capture tools. My other main capture tool is my calendar. And so what are those for you? So I want you to just take a couple minutes and jot down what are some ways that you capture the things that you have to get done. And then answer those questions. Is it accessible, easy to use, or reliable? So I'll give you a couple minutes to do that. Some of us pretend that we will use I got a tablet because I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to keep everything electronic. I had to stop kidding myself. I am a paper and pencil gal, and so I carry around a notepad because that works for me. I try to do the electronic thing, but I try to perpetrate and it don't work for me. So you figure out what your thing is, what works best for you. All right. So what are some capture tools you guys use out there? Because some people may want to shamelessly borrow what you do. Okay. Evernote. Yep. A calendar for work and personal pad for work. Yep. What are some other things you guys do? So someone at the beginning of the day asked, what are some different tools and apps you can use to kind of organize your day? Evernote is a really good tool. OneNote is also similar to that you can create folders and things of that nature within it. So does anyone else have, so there's a digital notes app in their iPhone. Okay, good. Does anyone know of any really cool technology that you use to capture things that you can drop in the chat box for people? Because I know there's some people who are real savvy when it comes to technology in terms of how you capture things. So I know of OneNote, Evernote. Okay, Our Reminder is another good app. Okay. Notes on my phone, notepad, sticky notepad, any piece of paper available to me when I need it. Absolutely. And then you got to remember to put all that stuff together. Okay, cool. Yeah, so these are some really good ideas. And the idea is I want you to identify up to 2 that you feel like you can use. Yeah, Marianne, I can't let it go. I just can't. Like I have notes here now. It's just the thing. So what I want you to do is with that on that list on that page is just identify 2 that you can use consistently, that is reliable for you and is accessible for you. Here's why. I recognize that just picking 1, you may not have access. So 2 is good, but you don't want more than that because then it's defeating the whole purpose of being efficient. So the whole point of this is to be efficient. So the thing that we just did on these sheets of paper, brain dumping, mind sweeping is what we call it. You would do that in one of your capture tools. Now, some of you may say, I kind of like the little pad of paper, this little slips of paper. That's been cool. That's fine. Notebook, so you can capture note wherever it is, whatever works for you, just pick 2 and stick with that. Any thoughts on that? So when you did that brain dump, that mind sweep, how did you feel getting that stuff out of your head? How did that feel? Lucy said thumbs up. Yeah, it's kind of like nice to be able to just get it out. And then when we look at this, it's like, oh, dang, I got a lot of stuff to do. So there's that part of it. It's like, ooh, I got a lot to do. But at least
For me, sometimes when I start brain dumping task lists and I'm, brainstorming and ideas and all that stuff, it's like rabbits. If I start getting on it, like one of my things is I haven't done my tax return yet. Yikes. I start thinking about it. I'm like, oh, crap. Then they just keep multiplying. There's more and more all the time. So getting a handle on certain things belong in certain places. Yeah. I don't necessarily want to have everything in my phone. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So having a couple of different resources for that stuff would be really helpful.
Yeah. And I think that's the point is like to do 1 is not feasible. I think as human beings, it's not feasible to do. So let's have 2. But if we have more than that, then it's going to be too overwhelming. So now that we have figured out how to clear our brains a bit, and we've determined some tools that we can use to capture what's in our brain, now we have to think about, well, what do I do with it? Now, what do I do with all, like this stack of stuff? What do I do with it? And so that's what we're going to talk about next. And it's gonna, so that process was called capture. Just capture everything that's got hold of you, capture that in some type of tool. That's what we just talked about. The next step is now, how do I clarify what am I doing? How am I going to associate meaning and associate action with all of these things that I have to do? David Allen, the content creator of this, I love this quote, so I added it. He says, everything on your lists and in your stacks is either attractive or repulsive to you. There's no neutral ground when it comes to your stuff. And so right now we're going to try to make it less repulsive by assigning what we're going to do with the stuff. So there is a decision model on your in your participant guide, and it's also on your screen. This is where you decide what to do with your stuff. This is so freeing if you allow it to work. The reason why I say that is because some of us are control freaks, and some of us don't like to let go of stuff for whatever reason. And some of us will not dare delegate because God forbid someone doesn't do it like we do it. So this will work if we can let go a little bit of control. So I'm going to invite you to open your minds to giving up a little bit of control. So this is how this works. So your stuff kind of goes in the funnel. So pick up one of your cards that you wrote on, and I want you to ask yourself these questions. For what's written on your card, is there an action that needs to be taken related to that, the thing that's kind of consuming your brain? If the answer is no, then you're either going to file it because you might need to reference it later, incubate it, so give a home to items or ideas that may require an action in the future. So you might have to give an action to it in the future, but just not right now, or trash it altogether. You either file, incubate, or trash if there's no action needed. Okay, so that's freeing if you allow it to be. So let's say with your stuff, it's like, yeah, Tish, there's not a whole lot of stuff in my pile. That's a no action. So what do I do? So what you do is, if the answer to that question is yes, what is the next action? So if you look at your card and what's on it, what is the next action? And you can write that down. What is the next action? And then when you think about the very next action, am I the right person to do this? So for example, somebody throw out an idea off your card, if you don't mind sharing, that you have a next action. What you got?
Update my website.
So update website. What's your very next action for that?
Outsource it.
Okay. So your next action is to outsource. So that means you have to find a vendor who can do that for you. Are you the right person to do that? Yes or no?
You mean to do the research on
Mm-hmm.
finding a resource?
Yep.
I can help you, Lisa.
Yeah, I would probably call the chamber.
Yeah, so that case, you may say, you know what, the next action is to find a vendor, and I'm just going to embellish it a bit. I need to find a vendor. Finding a vendor, can that be delegated? Does it have to be me to do it? No. So then now I'm going to delegate it. Because we have to be real with ourselves with that. Do I have to be the one that do this? No. Then give it to someone who it's most appropriate for. Now, if it's something that in fact is something that you have to do yourself, can I do it in 2 minutes or less? If the answer is no, then you want to add it to your to-do list, your calendar, or whatever it is that you have to do to dedicate time to doing it. If you can do it in 2 minutes, then handle it in 2 minutes. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that in just a second. So this decision model really helps us to clean out our piles very quickly. So we're actually going to do this. We're about to clean out these piles that you guys just constructed. So we're either going to file some stuff, incubate some stuff, or throw it in the trash. Or if it's only going to take us 2 minutes to do it, I'm going to give you time to do it. So this is going to be a quick, I'm going to give you 10 minutes. So again, this is so that we can let you walk out of here feeling accomplished with stuff done. So I'm going to give you 10 minutes. I want you to go through your list, and I want you to follow the decision tree, and you have it in your guide, and I want you to make the right choice. When you find your stuff that only takes 2 minutes or less, you will have the time to complete that action. So rather it be you turn your camera off, you got to make a phone call, or you need to shoot a quick email, whatever you got to do that in 2 minutes. And then that card can go in a trash pile because you did the action. Cool. So 10 minutes on the clock. I will come back to you I'll still be here, but we'll reconvene at 11:18. And I want to hear all the amazing things you guys were able to accomplish and get rid of that list in these 10 minutes. All right, go for it. 2 minutes or less stuff, get her done. Make phone calls, send emails, reduce that pile that you have. Hopefully you're getting a lot done. You got 7 minutes. 2 minutes left.
Tish, how's your golf game?
How's my golf game?
Mhm.
Miniature golf, I'm great.
I couldn't believe that Sunday when I ran into you at
I
Top
know,
Golf.
right?
I kept, because you had a hat on, and I just kept looking. I'm like, that looks like Tish to me. Those girls are awful
Yeah.
cute.
It's fun, but miniature golf is probably my best game. We ended up going again a couple months after that. And Carrington, my youngest, had a ball, and she was
Well, she
great
was
at
doing
it.
well that day.
Yeah. She
She was doing really well that day.
Yeah, I think that's her calling.
Mm. Well, you should get her some lessons. That would
Yeah.
be great.
Yeah.
Are your,
And go ahead, Susan.
are your girls both back at school?
So my 20-year-old, she's back at school. Carrington, my 14-year-old, she's in school half day, but they go back full time next week. So I'm
Okay.
a little nervous, but so yeah, we'll see how that goes. She hasn't been sick. She's been back half days for a bit now. So I'm praying that all will be well when they go back full time.
Mhm.
So.
She's probably missing her
All
friends.
right, so that is time. So talk to me. Were you able to get some stuff done in 10 minutes?
Yes.
Did you move some of that stuff from the action pile to either file, incubator, or trash? Were you
No,
able to
I
get rid of
just
some
added
stuff?
more stuff.
Well, you weren't supposed to add stuff. You're supposed to eliminate stuff. And so the beauty is we did this in 10 minutes. So you were able to take what was you mind captured, your mind sweep, and then be able to say, okay, what's the next action for this? And you kind of go down that decision point. If you can do it in 2 minutes or less, do it. And then it's off your to-do list. So that's the kind of exercise that you want to go through on a consistent basis. So if you could designate, some people will do it on a Sunday. Some people will take a Sunday and just take maybe 30 minutes and do a mind sweep and go through this exercise of this decision model and get stuff out of the brain so they start the week off in a great way. So it's something that helps you to be very efficient and manages your time well, but you just have to invest the initial 30 minutes, but it frees you so much more when you do it, and just be deliberate at it. Because otherwise you figure you're investing 30 minutes. If you house all this stuff in your brain constantly and you're milling it around, just think about how much time you've spent milling around these ideas when you can just get it from here out and then work it and be done. So that's when I said that we looking at time management for this section a little bit different. It's really helping to free your mind so that you can focus on other important things that you need to focus on. When it comes to your goals and when it comes to other priorities, kind of encroaching upon what it is that you need to focus on in that moment, you can go through this decision model and you can ask yourself, am I the right person to do this? And if the answer is no, then give it to the person who is most appropriate to do it. And that's okay to do that. No, some people may not do things the way we do it, and that's okay. But we have to start to let go of some of those things so that we can be more productive and sane. Because we don't, it takes a village. We don't have to do it all alone. Any thoughts or questions or epiphanies that you had in those 10 minutes?
So I have a question, Tish.
Uh-huh.
Would you include, I did 3 tasks that have been on my to-do list for a little bit.
Great.
And yeah, but two of the three, I literally just sort of put the ball in someone else's court. So like an example of a professional oriented task that I just accomplished was I've been going back and forth in emails with a client I've done work for before who asked, can I do new work for them? So, just trying to coordinate communication has kind of become a little bit of a project, which is stupid. But so one of the things I did during that 10 minutes was I just sent an email saying, here's my available dates and the hours on those dates, pick one. Does that count as I'm done now?
You're done now. So
Okay.
now, because that was your next action. And so now the ball is in their court. Now it may be something that you say, I'm going to incubate that just so that it doesn't fall off my radar. And so however capture tool you want to use to incubate that, that may be what you do with that. Or if you feel like truly the ball is in your court, then you might file it or trash it. So that's a choice. That's a choice that you can make related to that. But yes, that is exactly how it works. It's like whatever that next action is, do that action and then do what you got to do with it. Throw it in the garbage because you're done, whatever. So get into the practice of that. Like I find that I have to sit down sometimes and do just this and just say, okay, what do I got going on? And then I feel so much lighter. And I feel like I can be so much more productive and it manages my time so much better because I'm one of those people that stuff goes on in my brain all night and I just don't shut down. I don't get sleep those nights. And so I had to learn to get it out of here, out on my capture tool so that I can get some rest. And I can be more productive the next day because now I know what I have to do. All righty, so just a couple more things. Oh, I had a question, but I'll ask it when I come back, if I remember. I should have mind swept just then, so that I don't forget what I have to. But it's in the chat, so I won't forget. So again, if you can do it in 2 minutes or less, just designate time in your week where you can do your 2 minute or less things. And I gave you 10 minutes. You may decide, you know what, I'm going to do my 2 minute or less things in, I'm going to take 30 minutes to do all those things. All the stuff that's more than 2 minutes, I'm going to designate time on my calendar to get those things done. So freeing your brain, and we kind of talked about this a little bit at the beginning, conduct it weekly, at least. Invest about 30 to 40 minutes to walk through the decision model and do a mind sweep, and protect time on your calendar to do those 2 minute or less things. If you can protect that time, it's an investment because now that's more time you have back for yourself in the week because you've taken care of those low hanging fruit. Focus on things that support your goals. So when you're going through that process of your task list, and your mind sweep, ask yourself, does this task align with my focus for the year? And if the answer to that question is no, then you really have to decide whether or not that's something that you should be focusing your time on. And if someone else is asking for it, there may need to be some negotiation. And it may sound something like, I understand that this is a priority for you. Right now, I'm working on XYZ project. I'm happy to help you, but I won't be able to get to it until second quarter. Here's a resource if you need it done before that. So that's some of the conversation and negotiation that you'll have to teach people how to treat your to-do list. Because what happens is we allow people to just dump whatever they want. And what we've taught them is that it's okay to come to our doorstep and dump whatever they want to dump. But instead, we have to teach people how to treat us by saying, hey, I get this as a priority for you. I can get to that for you second quarter. If you need it before then, here's a resource that you can tap into. Really powerful language that you can have to help protect your time. So I want to kind of hear some of your call to action and use this time for that, as well as reflection and questions. One of the things that I wanted to make sure we did was leave some time in the day for you to do some low-hanging fruit things. So the work that you just started with for 10 minutes, I wanted to provide some time for you to do that, and you can start your afternoon with a really clean slate and feeling like you're really accomplished. But before we get to that, I wanted us to just to have some time of reflection and call to action. What's one thing you're going to do different as a result of the conversations we've had today related to goal planning, goal setting, and time management? So you can drop it in the chat or you can say it out loud, but what are some low-hanging fruit from today? Susie? Oh, you're on mute.
I have been working on a worksheet for myself for like notes and kind of a checklist that I to use with the members that I work with. And I have kind of put my worksheet on a back burner. And I think I'm bringing it from our conversation. I think I'm bringing it back to the front burner.
Okay, nice.
I thought I had another system in place, but I don't like the system. And to see someone as accomplished and successful as you are that still says that they're a paper person, you empowered me. I'm going back to paper.
Yeah. If it works for you, that you got to do what works for you. We can try to perpetrate other stuff, but it just don't work. So do what works. Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Susie.
Thank you.
Power in paper. Love that. Lisa said, moving forward, I plan to enact task by task accountability on the path toward reaching each goal. Perfect. Doing the weekly mind brain sweep, Damara stated. Any other thoughts, key takeaways, things you're going to do different?
I'm definitely going to do those 2-minute tasks right there and then, get those 2-minute tasks done instead of continually have them, percolate in my brain and then turn in my head, I'm thinking that those 2-minute tasks are now going to be 10-minute tasks and then a half an hour task. And it just, sometimes it drives me crazy. I'm like, wait, it really only did take 2 minutes to do that.
Yeah.
I think I got like 4 or 5 things done in that 10 minutes that you gave us. But in my mind, I thought it was going to take so much longer, just like emptying the dishwasher. I timed myself once and it was less than two minutes, but yet I always put it off. So it's, just do it, get it done.
And be done.
Get it done.
Let it release you.
Yeah.
Marianne?
I 100% agree with Linda. I overestimate the time. Like I was surprised how much I could get done in the time you allotted us. I'm like, oh, I won't do this because it's going to take forever, and I'll set this over on the side I just completely overestimate how long things take, so then I don't get to them. And so I completely concur with what Linda said. I was amazed how many things I got done in that small amount of time.
Awesome.
We just have to have a little Tish angel above us. Constantly going, you can do it. You can do it.
2 minutes.
That's all it takes.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, Marianne. Any other thoughts, new ideas, takeaways, things you're going to do differently as a result of our time? Cool. Well, hopefully that as you look at your participant guide and you reflect on those things, there are some things that you can do moving forward to really help, one, direct your activities for the year, and two, be able to manage your time in such a way where time isn't running us, but we're running it. And that's what we ultimately want to get to, where we feel like we are in control of what is what's on our plates. I had a question for Catherine. This was the one question that I want to make sure I didn't forget. So Keep Notes, that's an actual app, Catherine?
Yes.
Okay. And it's one that it's almost, does it work like a common drive where you both can access it at the same time and it's live?
That's a good question. So I think it's like a Google app, and you can make someone a collaborator.
Okay.
And there's like boxes to have like a checklist, so you can mark things off. Like say I want something from the store and him to pick it up for me because I'm pregnant and have cravings. So then he'll pick it up and check the box so that I know it's coming home.
Okay, cool. That's a cool, I haven't heard of that one. And I like that it's collaborative. So if you have a team of people, you can use that to just make sure you're on the same page with things. Yeah, I like that.
What's the name of it again?
On my phone, it's called Keep Notes.
Keep notes. Okay.
Does that look familiar, Catherine? Is that it?
Yep, exactly.
So in the App Store, it's called Google Keep -Notes.
It's this, oh, I hit the wrong one. It's this little yellow one here, if you can see it. It looks like, yep, similar to what Lisa's showing. It's just a little document that looks like it almost has like a light bulb or something on it. He likes lists, so he gets the credit. He introduced it to me, and so I utilize it to get his attention. So
do what you got to do.
Thank you.
All righty. So before we depart each other's presence, and I give you the gift of time to focus on getting that list down to almost nothing. So wait, first of all, you guys have to promise me that that's what you're going to use this gift of time that I'm giving you for. Right? So that gift of time to really spend time either refashioning goals, crafting goals, going through mind sweeps and putting them in your capture tools and assigning things where you need to go. As long as that's what you're going to promise me, then I'll give you the gift of time. Okay. All right. So before we go, after each session, as you know, we have our kind of field work. And so I wanted to provide that to you guys. And it's also in your participant guide, the things that we're wanting you to do as a result of our time together. So you don't have to do all three of these things. I want you to pick two of the three. And what it is I want you to, do it, that conduct a SWOT analysis of your business. So we spent just a little bit of time doing that together on the phone, on the Zoom. But you might want to spend more time here. And particularly if you really want to really level set or re-level set your business and get a picture of what's happening in your landscape, this would be good to spend some time doing. And you have a Word document that you can use, the participant guide to utilize to capture that. Also, identify 3 goals to focus on in 2021. And we spent time kind of thinking about 2. But I want you to give some more thought to it using the SMART methodology. How will you measure it? What tool will you use to house it? That could be one of the tools we share with you, the one I share with you, the one Rick shared with you, or whatever one that you would make for yourself. And how will you revisit the goal progress throughout the year? And then the last option that you have to work on is during your mind sweep, I want you to identify 2 to 3 items that can be delegated to someone who is most appropriate for the task. I know that that's a hard thing for us. And so that's why I specifically picked delegation that I want you to focus on because it's something that we as leaders, or even as individual high-performing individual contributors, we struggle with. And so I want us to get good at delegating and feeling good about it. So you can submit this to me by April 20th. So you got 2 weeks. And I cannot wait to hear some of the things that you guys come up with. Again, when we think about development, when we think about Leadership Institute, the work isn't what we necessarily do in the session. It's the stuff that we implement post-session. And so that's why this field work is so important, so that we can start to get these concepts in our bones and they start to influence how we function and lead as leaders. And so please make sure you do pick 2 of these 3 and submit it to me by April 20th. Our next session will be on effective communication and listening. And I'm gonna actually look at you guys eyeball to eyeball on this one. So when we meet that day, there's a lot of rich conversation we're going to have. And so what I want you to do in preparation for that session is really think about those tough situations that you face from a communications perspective. What are some of those difficult conversations that you've had that didn't go well, or one that you need to have? I want you to kind of get that in your brain, because we're going to massage those things. And by the time you walk out of the session in May, you will have had that conversation framed out, or have some really good tools on how to navigate those tough conversations. So give that some thought between now and May 4th. So what questions can I answer? What are your yeah buts, thoughts before I let you do some mind sweeping? Thoughts, questions, yeah buts?
This has been really inspiring and helpful. Thank you, Tish.
Well, thanks for being here. I really appreciate you guys working the information, working the content, and hopefully you picked up some nuggets that'll be helpful in your work every day.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Gives
All
us
right.
several reminders of what we need to do and how to fine tune the chaos.
Yeah. Yeah.
Focus on the key goals that will get done what we need to get done.
Yeah.
So thank you.
My pleasure. All right. Well, if there is nothing more, I'll hang out
By
for
the
a
way-
couple moments. Yes.
By the way, I got rid of my Post-it notes.
I
had
can't
about
fool
20 on my
myself.
desk last week, and I said, I've had enough of Post-it notes. So I put all my notes now in a binder. So I don't have, then I can't figure out what's on the Post-it note.
Well, you're my hero because I got a slew of them right across my monitors.
I got rid of mine.
Well, if there's nothing more, I'll hang out for a couple moments if anyone have questions. But other than that, have a fantabulous rest of your day and enjoy the week. And we'll see you back in May.
Thank you.
All right.
Thank you so
Thank
much.
you.
Yeah. Thank you. Take care.
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Thanks everybody for joining. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. This was awesome. Thank you. Thanks for being here.